So, violence at the micro level and violence at the macro level have very specific intentions that can be useful very temporarily, but violence in of itself is not the way society or families and people work out their differences. That is a very Neanderthalic way of conflict resolution, is using violence. And so you're also seeing the system change from a corporal punishment type of atmosphere to now potentially an intellectual type of atmosphere when it comes to conflict resolution. And so when we're using torture and corporal punishment and butchering people with the knife, even in a surgical setting, that speaks to the lack of evolution our society is experiencing, and it is violence at the microbial level. Well, it's and at the macro level as well. It's state sanctioned violence because you're actually going in and tearing into somebody, even though they're under an anesthetic. You're still going in and superficially messing with someone's hormones. And so if you want to change the way a person thinks, you get to the root level. And first, that is aligning the viral programming and kicking out the conflicting programming, and then feeding the body all food in the food supply. And then also has to do with pain and understanding symptoms and all of that. And so, I mean, we haven't come that far as humans. We have just dressed up what we have done to brainwash people through torturous methods and corporal punishment as an accepted way because somebody wears, a doctor's coat, like a lab coat, or they have a degree in, child psychology and child development. Okay. I would say that until we get to the root level, which is changing your biochemistry and understanding the power and the efficacy of sugar and salt, you're just putting lipstick on a pig. Simply teaching a utopian way of thinking is not going to resonate. It'll only go, so far. It is very surface level. I mean, it's a start. I mean, what they're doing with the critical race theory and promoting diversity is a start to the evolution of our society. But this is where my protocol, my jelly juice mentality is going to take it all the way to the next level. Because what we've been demonizing, salt, sugar, carbs, and all of that, and then not understanding the intentions of vaccines, is going to keep people in a Neanderthalic, violent way of expressing themselves. And so you see it in children. They're already they're at a Neanderthalic stage. Children are Neanderthals until innovation and refinement come in. And then the child will stop using violence as a way to express themselves, and they start using their words, and they start using their intellect. But some parents have not gone out of that stage of violence and aggressive behavior in order to get their point across. And so that is why we have society that's mostly violent, because even parents have had their development stopped. Their evolution has been stopped. Yeah, and it's by the vaccines. It's by all the therapeutics, the herbs, the extracts, the pills, the powders, supplements, the detoxes. And so that's why you don't even see evolution in those that claim that there's some issues with the therapeutics, because they don't understand what is going on within them and their lack of development. And so then they are reduced down and driven down to a very binary, enemy, type enemy mentality. And so this is where the violence, the activism, the destruction, the debate, and then totally complete annihilate your opponent, the football, all the competition sports. Hey, I love sports. I played sports as a kid too, but it does ingrain and it does sustain and perpetuate the Neanderthalic caveman mentality. And then, of course, all the dying and reproducing. Why we have young ladies who only look at themselves as some kind of object to be cannibalized and be adored, but not look to their brain. And if they are looked at their brain, they have to also implement the sex appeal as well to sell their brain. And that's also very Neanderthalic, very caveman. I mean, it's an advanced form of Neanderthalic and caveman, but still goes down to a very primordial instinct to attract a mate and reproduce and then die. And so thank God for this time that we are in. Thank God for this virus, because this virus has increased intelligence in one aspect of humanity. And it also has magnified how basic the other side of humanity is. And some people hold those two opposing forces in their body, and so they can be very intelligent and can articulate and write very well, and when challenged they become very aggressive and violent. And so that is the war within, is when people are fighting against their own evolution, especially when their ideas and thought processes and lifestyles and belief systems are being challenged. They respond back with violence, with aggressive behavior, and it's primordial. It's very primitive. I mean, watching the extreme fighting, the boxing. I mean, that's what our society, like the Olympics, it's all based on training a dog, Pavlov's dog, the carrot stick mentality, the positive and negative reinforcement, and trying to use biotech to keep that reinforcement of a specific thought process sustained until the person passes away. But when they're glitching on their way out the door, to also squelch that energy. And that's why people are on the herbs and the extracts and the detoxes and all the surgeries, because the body is going to produce energy to evolve, and the person has not been taught that this is energetic evolution. It must be fed with all the food and the food supply with no discrimination. And the body must also adapt to the viral matrix that has changed. And so I made a correlation between the Spanish explorers that colonized the Americas to a virus now going into communities like a Spanish explorer and forcing people to evolve and adapt, or devolve from the evolution and pass away. So either you assimilate or you pass away, or you assimilate and you stay alive and you become more intelligent, and you're not always choosing to go to the most basic level instinct of violence and reproduction. I mean, reproducing is great, but what are you reproducing? The same mentality that you have? Oh, people suck, and you're not going to take in new information, and salt and sugar are bad, and anyone that brings forth new information, they must be destroyed. I mean, that's what people are reproducing in our society, is the intolerance of which the system is trying to squelch. But the system doesn't know how to, the system cannot legislate morals. So then there's a psychological operations, which has happened since 9/11, at least in America and the world. Then it's the demonizing of the meat, the milk, the cheese, the eggs, the water, all the food supply, the air. Demonize each other, demonize the biotech, aspects of biotech. And so when a new virus, a new entity, a new colonizer comes in to an indigenous population like America, like Europe, like any other population out there that is not used to a new viral entity, whether it's in a microbial form or a macro level form of Spanish Armada, when they're exposed to it, they can't deal with it. And so so this so that's the way the government and those that are trying to evolve, that's the only way they can kind of control the de-evolution of our society is that we're going to force people to either assimilate or not. And so the whole point of wearing masks, getting a vaccine and staying home and staying safe could potentially lessen the aggressive amount of evolutionary energy that is going to be magnified in those that are so devolving, that are so glitching, that you need to stay home and you need to kind of chill out and evolve the brain. Because I'm telling you, the answer isn't out there. I know people want to be mobile and they want to travel everywhere and they want to, not change their lifestyle, but the environment has changed on such a drastic level that it's not a person doing anything to you. It's the environment that's going to actually destroy you if you don't keep up to the level of the environment. And that is understanding the food supply, but also understanding the world that you live in and the people that the people that are in your community and what they're dealing with and what they could potentially do that's unpredictable, that you can't control. You can control your own house on some level. You can't control the weather. Somebody else is doing that, so you have no control over that. So you now must be aware of the indicators and act accordingly, control what's within your control, and adapt to this very, very aggressive atmosphere. And so, we're definitely seeing a huge shift in the paradigms, the background of just how we think, how we do things. Even the economy is changing. I know some people are like, oh, Biden sucks, this person sucks, that person sucks. But if it wasn't Biden, it'd be Trump. It wasn't Trump, it'd be Biden, it'd be somebody else. It doesn't matter. The players change, but the agenda is still the same. This is, we're in a great evolutionary reset that isn't really bad per se if you understand what's going on, and then you can figure out the areas of where you are in control and the areas where you're not in control and chill out. The war is not out there. The war is within here. People are fighting their own evolution and they're not surviving it. Okay? When you're taking surgery, when you're doing surgeries and taking all your supplements and pills, powders and all that stuff, you're taking away the resources that you have, that you can use to adapt and to defend yourself from a microbial attack. The food supply is your greatest friend. The food supply is your greatest friend. The biggest enemy of people is themselves. But can you tell someone that? No. Because they think they do nothing wrong. Because they have had such lack of evolution throughout their whole genetic line that any possible new information coming in, whether it's a person, a place, or a thing, or a food, or a virus, they have intolerance to it. Major intolerance. Some of you experienced it, sociologically, because if people do stuff to you that's mean to you because they don't like the way you look. And people have intolerance biologically because they can't handle a new virus. And so, they must get a vector. See, here's the thing. Vectors and vaccines are for people who have trouble acclimating and transitioning to a new environment. I introduced the JGs back in 2016. I had so many latent viruses in me that needed to come to surface that those were the evolutionary upgrades that I squelched through the pills, powder, supplements, and detoxes and starvation diets. Into my world, it triggered the evolution within me, and then I was able to deal with all the symptoms and feed everything. And so I've dealt with my evolution through the JJ mentality. And so